Defence spending, let's have a chat about that. Obviously, Donald Trump's administration has been sort of trekking about the world, telling everyone to spend a bit more.
Yeah.
Are we going to listen?
Well, the request to Australia from Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth about a week ago was to lift our defence spending by 3.5%. And look, he wouldn't be plucking that figure out of thin air. It clearly is consistent with what Donald Trump thinks allies should be doing. But is Australia going to do it? It would be a big jump from where we are. We're at about 2%. We are increasing to 2.3% over the next 8 years or so, but we're talking tens and tens of billions of dollars a year in additional spending to get up to that sort of level. Look, you know, the government points out here that it is substantially increasing spending already on defence. Anthony Albanese doesn't want to be seen to be, you know, dancing to Trump's tune here, far from it. So if there is to be any further increase, he won't want it looking like he's only doing this because the US president's asking. But clearly it will come up when they meet. They're expected to meet on the sidelines of the G7 summit in just over a week in Canada. But trade, I think, will be the higher priority for the Prime Minister in those talks, should they go ahead, because Australia clearly wants those Trump tariffs removed. The 10% blanket tariff, the 50% tariff now on steel and aluminium. And as the Nine newspapers have reported this morning, and I've also confirmed this to be true, Australia is going to offer a review of the biosecurity laws that have stopped American beef being sold in Australia for about 20 years. There were concerns around mad cow disease, but also the fact that beef from Mexico and Canada slaughtered in the US also is sold, could potentially be sold here. So they're going to review those biosecurity laws. James, this has been a big beef for Donald Trump. It's a meaty concession, perhaps, on the cards. Couldn't resist it.
Did that with a straight face as well. That's cold.
David, let's talk super tax, because there's been a lot of discussion about that. We spoke to Ted O'Brien about it yesterday. Jim Chalmers has said, I don't think the opposition's fair dinkum about having any negotiations. So can the government get this through without the opposition's support?
They can get it through with the Greens. I think that's most likely at this stage. On your program yesterday with Ted O'Brien, and yesterday they had a shadow cabinet meeting, the coalition have firmed up a position now to say no deals. We're not going to be negotiating with the government at all on this super tax. And to remind people what we're talking about, it is an increased tax on big super accounts. Balances over $3 million would be subject to a tax on unrealised gains, so paper profits on the portion over $3 million. Government says, you know, that's going to affect very, very few people, less than 1%, but it's not indexed, so over time it would affect more. Coalition's now dealt themselves out of any negotiation here. The Greens want the government to go harder and apply this to balances over $2 million. I don't think Labor's about to do that, but you'd think it's hard to see how the Greens would still vote no to what the government is planning to do here. So, look, it'll be one of the first tests of the new Parliament when it does eventually sit, not till late July. The government has two pathways to pass anything through the Parliament, through the Senate, with the Coalition or with the Greens. So on this one, it looks like they'll have to turn to the Greens.
It's early in the Parliament, but we've already had a defection. Dorinda Cox switching teams from the Greens to the Labor Party. Does that come with a few risks, do you think, for the government?
Yes, it does. I mean, look, no Prime Minister's going to say no, or you wouldn't expect they're going to say no to someone joining their ranks. Normally it's the other way round. And last year, of course, it was Fatima Payman who famously quit Labor to sit on the crossbench in the Senate. Now it's Dorinda Cox jumping from the Greens to Labor. You know, every party leader wants an extra number in the Parliament. And this has the added benefit for Anthony Albanese of rubbing some salt in the wounds of the Greens after a disappointing election result. There are risks, though. You know, there are previous bullying complaints about Dorinda Cox that she's denied, but you know the number of them has been a problem. Some of them have been dealt with through the Parliamentary Workplace Support Service. There's also her previous comments, you know, criticising Labor on all sorts of things, including the North West Shelf gas project in WA or offshore from WA. So there's all of that. But I think most in Labor are willing to give Dorinda Cox a chance here, see how she performs now as part of the Labor team. But yeah, the musical chairs have been quite something since the election result.
They have. David, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
See ya.
And of course, do not miss Insiders with David Speers. That is on Sunday at 9 a.m. on ABC TV and of course on ABC iView.